One of the recurring themes of Batman Beyond is legacy. As the next generation Batman, Terry McGinnis had a lot to live up to, and the pressure of that responsibility moulded him into the man he was meant to become. It would have been very easy for the writers of the show to take the same approach for the next generation of villains. Imagine if they had just created a Two-Face Beyond or a Killer Croc Beyond. Instead, they preferred to create a new set of villains unbeholden to the previous continuity. But there's one set of rogues that were also driven by legacy. However, the trick was that their previous incarnations hadn't been seen on screen at the time of Batman Beyond. I'm talking about the Royal Flush Gang. The original Royal Flush Gang wouldn't be seen on screen until years later in Justice League. Now, I don't intend to focus too much on the Royal Flush Gang as a whole. Instead, I want to talk about arguably their most popular member, 10, also known as Melanie Walker, and how she rebelled against the pressures of her familial legacy. I ran a poll on my channel about Batman Beyond villains I should cover in the future, and almost 20,000 of you shared your opinion. Melanie Walker earned over 50% of the vote, so it's clear to me that she's a popular character, perhaps because of her doomed romance with Terry? But who is Melanie Walker, and why do people like her? We first meet Melanie in the episode Dead Man's Hand, as part of the Royal Flush Gang, a playing card-themed gang of thieves that soar through the air on mechanized playing cards. The comic book Royal Flush Gang was first introduced in 1966 Justice League of America 43. The comic book version bears very little resemblance to the gang seen in Batman Beyond. The original gang were all childhood friends rather than family members, and their 10 was a strongman named Thomas Dillon. There have been multiple Royal Flush Gangs in the comics across the decades, but they weren't related to each other. Instead, they were different gangs based on different suits, and eventually consisted of hundreds of members. Frankly, the comic book Royal Flush Gang isn't particularly interesting. As was their way, the DCAU writers took the basic concept of the Royal Flush Gang and stripped away everything that didn't work and added brand new material. This new Royal Flush Gang was a responsibility passed down across the generations and consisted almost entirely of direct family members. After all, if you're going to be part of a gang, you need to be able to trust the other members. And if you can't trust your family, who can you trust? Keep that in mind for later on. This current iteration of the Royal Flush Gang consists of King, Queen, Ace, Jack, and 10. Of the 5 members, the only one whose name we learn is 10, Melanie Walker. This is quite telling. The other members of the family have thoroughly embraced their playing card themed role, referring to themselves by their titles, while Melanie retains her birth name. Perhaps this is because of her lowly stature within the gang. 10 is the card with the lowest value in the hand. Even Ace, the super strong robot, has more status than she does, but I think it's a clear indication that Melanie is less invested in the family business than everyone else. Additionally, it's curious that her family have pseudo-English accents while Melanie has an American accent. I think this also adds to her sense of not belonging. Melanie has good reason for being uninterested in the gang. They are the epitome of a dysfunctional family. Her mother frequently compares the performance of the current king to her father, the last king, creating tension within the family. King clearly resents this comparison. Perhaps he was the Jack in the last iteration or a member of a different suit, which leads to constant bickering. Melanie complains about having to move around constantly as the family evades the police. She's a teenage girl and is unable to make any lasting friendships and is clearly lonely. The tensions between her family members make for an unpleasant home life, and so she spends as little time there as she can. During some rare downtime, she stumbles across Terry McGinnis immediately after he broke up with his girlfriend Dana Tan. Melanie flings herself at Terry, who accepts her advances, and they start a very brief but intense relationship. I think it's quite telling how Melanie just throws herself at Terry. She has learned that engaging with someone sexually is the quickest way to receive affection, even if it is only temporary. Melanie's life in the gang means she has to frequently move from town to town, and her duties often get in the way of her developing her social life, so she tends to make a move pretty quickly. It's fortunate then that Terry knows a thing or two about duty getting in the way of a social life. It's why he split up with Dana, and the two's delayed schedules seem to match up quite nicely. Unlike Dana, who is always on time, Melanie runs on Royal Flush Gang time, which fortunately is the same time as Batman time. Personally, I'm not that interested in their relationship. I think it's a bit shallow, but I understand that to some fans it's a very important point. So rather than poo-pooing it, I'm opening the floor to Connor from Play Content once more to talk about why the relationship between Melanie Walker and Terry McGinnis interests him.
10 is introduced in the early Batman Beyond episode Dead Man's Hand, as a reluctant member of the playing card-themed crime family, the Royal Flush Gang, known in their civilian identities as the Walkers. They must have turned to crime once their crisps became less popular. The star-crossed love story that arrives alongside 10 is occasionally criticised for its rushed nature, though in my opinion, this aspect is justified by the clear characterisation of both Terry McGinnis, aka Batman, spoilers, and Melanie Walker, aka 10. Melanie's sudden infatuation with Terry is justified by her familial pressure and isolated nature. Terry's sudden infatuation with Melanie is justified by his crime-fighting based pressure and the fact he's likely longing for romance due to the fact he's recently experienced a breakup. When I say recently, I mean approximately 2 seconds before meeting Melanie. It's widely known that you're meant to wait 3 seconds before finding a new partner. Meanwhile, the electric guitar-driven power ballad that plays during Terry and Melanie's first kiss is justified by... actually that's completely unjustifiable. A passable piece of music, wildly misplaced in that context. While immediately comparable to and clearly influenced by the dynamic shared by the original Batman and Catwoman, 10's sympathetic plight adds a uniquely tragic quality, while Catwoman's compulsively deceptive nature made her intentions slightly unclear. Catwoman and 10 are actually quite different, a point more explicitly explored in an essay entitled Catwoman and 10 are actually quite different, which you won't be able to find because it doesn't exist. 10 and Batman's relationship, and its parallels with that of Catwoman in the original Batman, represent the DCAU writers' impeccable ability to repeatedly form original stories and ideas while lovingly homaging established ones. This, along with the aforementioned clear complex characterization, as well as thrilling action, pleasing visuals, and effective humour, create an incredibly strong debut episode for 10, which foreshadows storytelling possibilities that are productively elaborated on in future episodes, which naturally also star the conflicted card-carrying criminal inspired by the feline femme fatale, the latter of whom I feel I should provide more information on. Let me tell you about a woman named Selina Kyle.
Thank you, Connor, and I agree that there are some parallels to be drawn to the Batman and Catwoman relationship, as well as the Spider-Man and Black Cat relationship, but you already know that if you watched my Batman Beyond month video about how Batman Beyond was inspired by Marvel Comics, right? Right? I'll link to it in the info button above for those that haven't seen it yet. But Melanie and Catwoman are quite different, even if Bruce Wayne makes the connection between the two. Where Catwoman is playful and aloof, Melanie is sad and lonely. Where Catwoman toys with Batman's affections, Melanie longs for Terry. Where Catwoman genuinely can't help herself from committing crime, Melanie genuinely wants to reform. At the conclusion of Dead Man's Hand, Melanie, along with her family, is sent to prison. Her next chronological appearance comes in the Batman Beyond tie-in comics, Volume 2, Number 4. Despite being in prison and being up for parole, the Royal Flush Gang starts committing robberies again. How are they doing it if they're behind bars? It would transpire that both King and Queen had identical twin siblings, who happened to marry each other, perhaps as an arranged marriage, and also had a daughter who happens to look just like Melanie. This new Royal Flush Gang attempts to take down the imprisoned Royal Flush Gang and replace them. Fortunately, Batman intervenes and helps to save their lives, and they repay his kindness by trying to kill him. Because of their violence and threats towards Batman, their parole is denied. Because she's a juvenile, Melanie would be released before the rest of her family. As seen in the episode Once Burned, as in the saying Once Burned Twice Shy, Melanie starts committing robberies again against her will. Note that Melanie targets a high-stakes poker game frequented by criminals and gangsters. She's not targeting any innocent people. This makes her a target for the criminals she's stealing from, as well as Batman. Upon being captured, Melanie reveals that her family is being held hostage, and she has to pay a ransom to free them. Batman, while cautious, offers to help rescue her family, but Melanie deceives him. She clearly doesn't want to risk her family's safety and instead sends Batman on a wild goose chase that nearly costs him his life, while she steals the rest of the money she needs. Outside of the costume, Melanie also hopes to rekindle her relationship with Terry. At the end of Dead Man's Hand, Terry watched as Melanie was carted away, and Melanie clearly felt shame. Terry was the person that she was projecting all of her love and affection on, and for him to see her as she truly was, a criminal from a crime family, clearly wounded her. And for some reason, Terry reciprocates. You can see the shame in Terry's face as he lies to Dana, telling her that he hadn't forgotten that they were supposed to be doing history homework together, but something came up. Yeah, that's certainly one way of putting it. Terry clearly has doubts about Melanie's innocence, but he wants to believe her. Melanie has no way of knowing that Terry's Batman, but that doesn't make her eventual betrayal any less painful for Terry. I'm absolutely certain that if she knew Terry was Batman, then she would have accepted his help. But the fact that she willingly betrayed Batman, who was genuinely offering to help, shows Terry the kind of person Melanie really is, and he cannot abide that. It's hard to blame Melanie for being treacherous when her own family deceives and betrays her. The Royal Flush Gang were completely safe. They orchestrated a fake ransom in order to test Melanie, to have her prove her loyalty, and this deception wounds her. As she says, all she has ever been to them is an accomplice, not a daughter, and this is the tipping point for her. When Batman interrupts them and Melanie protests, King asks Melanie to choose a side, her family or Batman. Melanie chooses a third option, herself. She leaves Batman and her family to fight it out before the victims of her crime spree turn up to enact their revenge. We wouldn't see the Royal Flush Gang again until the Season 3 episode King's Ransom. Melanie only has a small part to play in this episode. When her family are released from prison and attempt to regain their former glory, Melanie wants nothing to do with King and his scheme, and her absence is keenly felt. Without the full set, the family falls apart. But maybe there is hope for Melanie. In Batman Beyond Volume 2, number 23, another new Royal Flush Gang rises up, headed by her brother, the former Jack, as the new king. Once again, Melanie doesn't want to be involved in the crime spree and teams up with Batman to take them down. There's a really delightful scene where Melanie visits her father, King, in prison to inform him of Jack's latest scheme, which enrages him. This fury compels King to cooperate with Batman, as it's the only way he can take his son down a peg or two. While she does put on the costume to take Jack down, it was a one-off thing. She wants her brother to break the cycle and also reform. If he isn't willing to do that right now, then he can rot in prison until he comes to his senses. And this was Melanie Walker's final appearance in the DCAU. We wouldn't see her again in the show or the tie-in comics. In the mainline DC Comics universe, Melanie was introduced in the Batman Beyond Rebirth era comics. This time, she is the Ten of Hearts rather than the Ten of Spades, illustrating her split from her family. Her whole motivation for fighting crime is to get into Terry's good books so that they can rekindle their romance. So, yeah, Ten of Hearts, driven by romance, very subtle. I know these comics are intended to build on the DCAU shows, but in my mind they're completely separate. Melanie's shallow motivations are just one of the reasons why I tend to disregard the most recent Batman Beyond comics. And I'm not saying they're bad, but they don't have the same spark as the animated series, and they tend to go down the easy route, like having Matt McGuinness becoming Robin, Dick Grayson's daughter becoming Batwoman, and Beyond versions of present-day villains like the Scarecrow. Melanie Walker is an interesting foil for Batman. All too often we see characters that are romantically interested in the hero, but they have no interest in their civilian identity, such as Selina Kyle in Batman the Animated Series. But Melanie was the opposite. She didn't care for Batman, but she was very fond of his civilian identity. She also reflected the new Batman's own struggles with legacy. While Terry attempted the impossible to live up to the legacy of Batman, and succeeded, Melanie tried her best to break the cycle of abuse and neglect that came with her family's criminal legacy. And I also like to think that she succeeded. Okay, that's it for this week's essay. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really enjoyed the video and have the means, please consider making use of the thanks button to send a buck or two my way, because every little helps. I offer channel memberships for $1.99 a month. This will get you early access to my weekly video essay, priority responses to your comments, members-only videos, custom emojis, and an icon on your profile indicating that you're one of my people. Next time, I'm going to take a look at an original creation from Batman the Animated Series, a devious femme fatale that, for a number of reasons, has fallen by the wayside. She's one of the very first villains to appear in the show, but is mostly forgotten. We're going to talk about Red Claw. Hope to see you then.